Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something truly ancient, a prophecy that's nearly 4,000 years old. We'll be using William Hanna Thomson's classic book, The Great Argument, to see how just a few lines of text might have laid out the entire destiny of a nation.
Okay, let's jump right in. This is the prophecy that the patriarch Jacob gave to his son Judah. Now, what's so wild about this is that it seems to put a timer, a sort of expiration date, on the Jewish nation's sovereignty, its ability to rule itself.
So what we have here is this incredible historical puzzle, right? And it's got two main clues that we have to figure out. First, there's this scepter that's not supposed to leave Judah. And second, there's a mysterious person or event called Shiloh.
Okay, so let's start with the first piece of that puzzle. To even begin to understand the prophecy's timeline, we've got to ask, what in the world is this scepter of Judah?
Now, according to William Hanna Thomson's take on this, the scepter isn't what you might think. It's not just some fancy staff a king holds. No, it's way bigger than that. It represents this continuous, unbroken power for Judah to govern itself as a unique nation, to have its own laws and handle its own affairs.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Look at this timeline. Thomson's whole point is about the sheer resilience of Judah. I mean, think about it. They go through having kings, being exiled to Babylon, and even being occupied by the Romans. But through it all, they had something like the Sanhedrin, their top council, that kept their national identity and self-rule alive. It got pushed around, for sure, but it never completely snapped.
All right, so that's the scepter. Now for the second clue, because this is where the timeline really kicks in. The prophecy says that scepter stays until Shiloh comes. This is the big trigger. So, who or what is Shiloh?
So there's this idea floating around that Shiloh is just a place, right? The town where the tabernacle once was. But Thomson looks at that and says, that doesn't really fit. Nothing major happened to Judah's government because of that town. So instead, he does something really smart. He goes back to the people who first heard the prophecy. What did they think it meant?
And this is absolutely key to Thomson's argument. It all comes down to how the original audience understood it. For them, he says, it was obvious. Shiloh wasn't a place, it was a person. And not just any person. It was their name for the promised Messiah they were waiting for.
And look, he's not just pulling this out of thin air. This is where he really builds this case. He points to these incredibly important ancient Jewish texts. We're talking the Talmud, the Targums. These are cornerstone writings, and they straight up say that Shiloh is a name for the Messiah. So this wasn't some fringe idea. For centuries, this was the accepted Jewish understanding.
Okay, so now we have the two pieces of our puzzle, right? The scepter means self-rule, and Shiloh means the Messiah. And this is where Thomson argues that everything clicks into place, where history and this ancient prophecy just collide.
So just think about what this prophecy laid out. It set this incredibly specific condition. Judah's long history of self-rule would come to an end, but only after the Messiah arrived. His arrival was the signal. The countdown was over.
And so, in Thomson's analysis, the person who fulfills that condition, the one who shows up right on time, is Jesus. He identifies Jesus as the coming of Shiloh, that prophesied messianic figure. The condition, set thousands of years before, was finally met.
And then what happens? It's almost unbelievable. Just one single generation after Jesus' life, this catastrophic event takes place. In the year 70 A.D., the Roman army comes in, led by Titus, and they completely leveled Jerusalem and the temple. This wasn't just a defeat, it was the final, undeniable end of the Jewish national state.
So for Thomson, you just can't ignore the timing. It's too perfect. You see the sequence here. Shiloh, the Messiah, arrives. And then, almost immediately on a historical scale, the Roman prince comes and destroys everything. The scepter is gone. That national authority that had somehow survived the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, it finally disappears. Right after the one person prophesied to trigger its end appears on the scene.
But wait, there's more. The prophecy didn't just stop with destruction. It actually had a second part, a second clause that was just as mind-blowing, one that looked past Judah and out to the rest of the world.
Right there at the end, it says that, "Unto him shall the gathering of the peoples be." Some translations say the obedience of the nations. So what on earth could that mean? The nation is gone, but now the whole world is going to gather to this figure?
While Thomson's argument is that this points straight to the global impact of Jesus. The prophecy was saying that the very same person whose arrival would signal the end of Judah's story as a nation would then become the center of a brand new, international community, a kind of spiritual kingdom that would draw people from all over the world.
So you have to ask yourself, what are the odds? Is this all just a massive 4,000-year-old coincidence? Or, as William Hanna Thomson lays it out, is it something more? He presents this incredibly compelling case where an ancient prophecy seems to nail the exact timing for the end of a nation's sovereignty, linking it to the arrival of one person who would then change the world forever. It's a pretty amazing puzzle to think about.